Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Integrated Self podcast. I am so excited to finally be back and doing weekly episodes. Yes, you heard me correctly. Appreciate you guys. I know I have a lot of listeners that are listen to every single week, and so I am so happy that you are here and you are supporting the podcast. I really appreciate you guys, and this is so my vibe. I've spent the couple of weeks that I've been off. Honestly, it's been probably 2 months. Setting up a more cozy knit environment for us to spend our time together on these Thursdays and to really just invest in this and invest in myself and, really take this up a notch. And so I just wanted to say thank you and welcome back. So this week's episode, I really want to talk about intuition because I know this is such a hugely talked about topic in the spiritual community and, in this personal development, holistic healing space, whatever, label you want to give it. I'm all of those things. But if you've never seen me before, I want to say hi. My name is Arianna. I'm a holistic health practitioner and I help people heal from the past and really start to free themselves, mentally, emotionally from things that have really impacted us, as human beings. But also by recognizing that we are so powerful, and so I love plugging you into your personal power and, reflecting and being a mirror for, your beliefs and helping you and guiding you through these things. But don't get it twisted. And I posted this on my Instagram story today that you are the one doing the work. You're the one healing yourself. I'm just the one that has done these transformations before and knows how to give you the tools and what tools would help you. And, really connecting with you on what you visualize and what you want. Because I think what a lot of people start to realize when they meet a lot of people in this community or follow people in general on social media is that you think that everyone is in this community to really make it big and to have these massive dreams and stuff. But in reality, you guys, if my life was just the way that it is right now for forever, I'd be so better off for it because I honestly got into this work because I just wanted to be able to put on an outfit and feel myself and feel actually confident, and walk out the door. I wanted to have a situation, knowing that I was so young that, there's going to be events in life that happen and, are out of my control. And I really wanted to learn a new way of approaching those things because I used to be someone that would lash out all the time at people. I would blame other people for my problems in the way that I felt. And I would, make people feel bad or feel guilty if I was insecure. And, it was a very kind of sad way of living. And I started to realize that. I started to look in the mirror and be like, why and how did I become this cynical, miserable, insecure version of me? I felt so small. And it even impacted me to the point where my posture was so bad because I was so not connected to my power that I would hunch over all the time. And, now that I've done yoga and really done the internal work regarding confidence and love and personal power and really connecting to my divinity, my posture is improved and, I really stand tall and I really stand in what I say. It's just night and day difference. So I originally got into this work because I just wanted to feel better about myself. I also wanted to have more courage and bravery when it came to making my own decisions and learning to not be codependent on my parents because I was very hyper independent, but when it came to making decisions, I always felt like I couldn't trust myself. I trusted myself to get the things done, get my oil change, get my homework done, pay my bills. But when it came to making decisions that there were really no right or wrong answers to, what would I prefer? I didn't know that because I didn't really know myself. I only knew the shell of a human that I was being. I didn't really know who I was in a unique way, in an individualized way. And healing has really helped me go within and get to know myself, who I truly am at the core, what I truly value, what I want my future to look like, and how I want to feel on a day-to-day basis. And I've really just taken my power back from a lot of my past traumas. Anyway, that's just me and why I came into this work. And I'm living a life right now that I manifested for myself 3 years ago. And it's crazy to look back on that time in my life where I was really going through it. And I can't believe that, I'm looking up today, and I even had a surreal moment with myself today where I realized that I today, like, I literally lived a whole entire day that I dreamt about. Like, if only I could have a day where I could do this, and that was my day today. And it's so beautiful to see that and live that and like be in that experience. It's like super surreal. It's like deja vu almost. But yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys, say that I'm back better than ever, seriously, for real right now. We're going to be releasing videos or episodes every Thursday. So I thank you so much for being here. And I really wanted to talk about intuition today because, again, intuition is something that we hear all the time. So essentially, your intuition is your internal compass. Essentially, picture it like your spiritual self, your higher mind, right? Guiding you throughout life. So once you form a relationship with it and you actually trust the way that your body is guiding you and you trust the feelings and you start following them, right? Like, for example, I don't tell my clients who don't know their intuition and don't trust it to go make major life decisions off of a feeling, because in reality, you don't fully trust it. And so there's a way to go about this where you form the connection and you start to strengthen your intuition through practice. And, you're not, making or breaking the bank or making huge life decisions that you're not fully positive on, because you haven't built this connection and you don't fully trust the feelings and where they're guiding you, and you don't trust the divine and all these things, right? Especially if you don't trust yourself. You can't trust your intuition. It's something that forms together. The more you trust your intuition, the more you trust yourself, the more you trust the divine, the more all three of these things start to form together. And you just have this, once you have this unbreakable trust with yourself and the way that you guide yourself and through your intuition, and you don't second guess your intuition, you move through decisions and, obstacles like the snap of a finger. And your intuition is essentially your internal compass that guides you. So it's something, yes, it's a feeling, but it's something that you don't need a conscious mind for. Like, you don't need your intuition and your conscious mind. Obviously, we're human beings. Our conscious mind is always going to be saying stuff to us. So obviously what happens, and everyone will say this, right? This is the most common thing, is like, well, I did trust the feeling, but then my mind started playing tricks on me, or my mind started convincing me this, and that, and it's not true. And, what about this? And you start to fall back into that logical, analytical mind, right? And a lot of us have our intuition on point when we're children, right? Like any kid, especially now that I'm way older, I'm 25 now. But anytime that I see a kid, actually I have a stepbrother who is 10. So, he's a kid, but he's so intuitive. Every kid that I've seen is so intuitive now, like, especially since I'm able to see that because I work with this like on the daily. So I see it in these children, and I feel like every kid is very intuitive. We're all born with this natural ability that's very strong and high, because when you're born into this world, you're already worthy, you're already abundant, you're already of the divine, you already have everything within you. And then what happens is, as you go through life experience and your mind starts to develop and your subconscious is very like absorbs everything within the first 6 to 7 years of your life, once all that starts to happen and you enter school, the way, especially in the US, the way that we're taught is so logical. It's so analytical. There's no free thinking. There's no critical thinking. There's no imagination, creativity in school. I mean, maybe when you're in first, second, third grade, but by the time you're in middle school and high school, it's all by the book. There's no, of course, there's like, what do you think about this? What's your opinion? But I feel like I remember something that really shaped me, which is huge, because this will tell you that, when you're a kid, even the smallest little experiences, like if you're watching this and you're a teacher or you work with kids, everything you say, even if you have a kid or you have a nephew, like this really goes for anybody that interacts with kids in general, you are so influential in their life that you don't even realize that you could say one thing to them that's going to stick with them. And they're going to be 25 and they're going to look back at you and be like, I remember when I was 8 and you said this. So you're very influential, more than you think. And I remember this one incident. I think I was in fourth grade, and I was a very studious child. I still am in school. I'm still in school, you guys. I'll eventually 6 degrees later I'll be done. But that's an exaggeration. 4 degrees. I'll have 4 degrees total. But anyway, it doesn't matter. What I was saying is, like, when I was in fourth grade, I was very studious and I loved math. So I took a math test and, I did really well on it, but I got an answer wrong. Like one of those questions that was like 8 total points and, each part of the question was 2 points or whatever. And I knew that I got the right answer. So like when I handed in the test and when I got it back, I just knew like majority of those points I got. And when I was flipping through the test, I forget what grade I got, doesn't matter. But when I was flipping through, I remember being so frustrated because we were going through the test as a class and, she marked my whole question wrong. I got 8 points off for just that, getting all that one question wrong. And I'm like, oh, I must have just gotten the wrong answer. And that's why the whole thing's wrong. And then we go over the problem as a class and, she does it differently than I did, but we both got to the same answer. And I remember raising my hand and being like, why did I get these points off? Like I got the right answer. And she's like, you didn't do it the way that I taught the class. You didn't do it my way, basically. And I was like, that was the first time, because from that, I learned that there's only one way to do things, right? So our school system really teaches us to think logically and to, no, don't trust your feelings. Don't be imaginative. That's not going to get you anywhere. Like following your imagination and daydreaming, like all that's useless, and creativity is useless. Like they literally pump kids out to be working people of society, but this was all formed back in the Industrial Revolution where we needed workers, factory workers. But now the world has changed so much that we do need creative people. And unfortunately, I feel like our school system is set up in a way where it doesn't really like support that or like embrace that as much as it should. Because what happens is, as we're adults, we start to hear the word intuition and not value it. Like this is an innate thing that we all have. And as we get to adulthood, we take things so seriously and we're not playing and we're not expressing our inner child, and everything is serious and logical and analytical and blah, blah, blah. And it's like we've lost touch with this part of ourselves that is highly intuitive. And once I created this relationship with my intuition, I have been able to make decisions that if I said out loud, you'd be like, that makes no sense at all. You didn't have a backup plan. You'd make less money doing that. Or, you didn't have a plan. What's the next step? So it's like, once you follow your intuition and you actually trust it and you form this relationship with it, my intuition ultimately knows what's going to serve me the best, what's going to be healthiest, what's going to be safest, what's going to be the most successful. Your intuition has all the answers. Your higher self has all the answers. The beautiful thing about having a really strong intuition is that you can fact check anything against it. If you get a multiple job offer, not one of them is sticking out to you, you can sit with your intuition and check every one against them. And your intuition will ping, 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 which one would bring you into your highest timeline or be the most successful or provide you with what you value and desire as opposed to the other ones. Your intuition can save you from unsafe places or dangerous people. In the beginning, when you don't trust your intuition, it's almost like you get these pings, you get these, oh, I'm going to say the thing, or this is a perfect opportunity for me to do this, or your intuition's like, go this way or go that way or do this or take that opportunity, but you're scared or you have fear or you don't trust it. So you don't. And then you have these feelings, or you see later on like, oh, I wish I listened to that feeling because now time has passed and other things have happened. And I really understand why I should have trusted that feeling. We all have had those moments. Like one of my other brothers is 19 now. And he told me about a situation like that where his intuition was telling him to say something and, to express himself for a moment of healing for him, to set a boundary and to really stand in his power. And in the conversation he was having, he knew that he's like, I'm going to say it. He was like, the whole time that the other person was talking, I was like, my intuition was like, I'm going to say it. I'm going to admit and be truthful and express how I feel and communicate that. And then after it was his turn to take advantage of that opportunity, but he basically didn't trust it. He fell into fear and he didn't say the thing. And then afterwards, we had a conversation about it, and he was telling me this whole story. And he was like, Arianna, I swear I'm like kicking myself. Like, I'm so angry at myself because I didn't listen to this feeling, and I knew I should have. And it was telling me to do it the whole time. And then when it was my turn, like, it felt like the pressure was on me, and I felt fear because I haven't really stepped into my power like this before. And I haven't really spoken about my feelings in this way. And so I felt fear, and I just didn't. I just shut my mouth, and I didn't take advantage of that opportunity. And I feel so like I'm like kicking myself, right? Like in regret almost. And all those feelings are valid. Okay. I want to let you guys know that if that's ever happened to you, I understand that that's a normal thing to happen, because again, going back to the whole thing is like, we're taught to be logical. We're taught to feel a feeling like that doesn't make sense, that has no explanation attached to it, no logical reasoning as to why that would happen or why that would be right for us or whatever. And since we're so used to not trusting those feelings, and we've been raised and taught not to, right? It's like, why would you? Of course, you're going to feel fear following a feeling that you have no proof or evidence that it will bring you to what you desire or bring you that opportunity. Like, it makes sense. And this is why I preach that it's a relationship that you form with your intuition, and that it's a huge misconception that people think that it's a gut feeling. It's a gut feeling. But you know where also you feel a gut feeling is when you have anxiety, when you feel grief, when you feel scared, fear. That could also be felt in the gut, right? Everybody's bodies are different, and everybody's intuition and connection that they have with it is different. Think of it as like something within you that's asleep right now. And in order to wake it up, in order to awaken to it and to strengthen that skill, just like any other skill, is practice, is getting to know yourself, is going within and forming this relationship. And the way to really practice it is to learn to practice it, just like any other skill, right? Like, I wouldn't be able to pitch a baseball to you right now, but if I practiced it, I probably would. So it's learning the way that your intuition speaks to you, because everybody's intuition speaks to them in completely different ways. So it's not always a gut feeling. And that's why I coach and I teach people how to do this. It's really hard in a world today where we live in a world of short attention spans and short form content, where you see a video of someone giving one piece of what intuition is, then you kind of fill in the gaps yourself. And then you start to practice with it and you don't have the full story. You know what I mean? And this goes with any topic online that you learn about, right? Like, you might learn one thing or watch one person's video, but then you watch someone else's video and they're saying the exact opposite thing, or they disagree, or they have a completely different perception of it. And that's why people like me exist, where people that are serious about this and they know the benefits and they want that life and they want to feel that way, they're not going to mess around. They're going to want to hire someone and work with someone on these skills that they trust and that already has all the information that they can learn from, instead of just saving like an Instagram reel or a TikTok and then making major life decisions off of a feeling that you don't fully trust yet, right? So when I teach my clients to trust their intuition, it's a practice, and it's a relationship that you form not only with yourself, but with your body and with source, with God, with unconditional love, with the universe. So it's something that you continuously practice, and as you practice, it strengthens. Now, I want to talk about the chakras, because your intuition is very much tied to your third eye chakra, your sixth chakra. That's why it's called your sixth sense, right? That's where that comes from, the chakra system that's been around for thousands of years. So it depending on what Eastern medicine you practice or you relate to, you can hear it described as the third eye chakra. You can hear it described as the brow chakra, but essentially it's right here, like in your forehead and between your eyebrows. And the reason why it's there, and the reason why the sixth chakra is your sixth sense or your intuition, is because your pineal gland in your brain is very, very much tied to your intuitive ability. So that's why that's there. And what happens is, in order for you to connect to your intuition and strengthen it, you have to expand these higher chakras. So I haven't heard anyone explain the chakra system in this way before, but the way that I like to think of it as is like people that are not that spiritual, people that are just like living their day-to-day life, and they're not really connected like in that way to their divinity, to source, to God, whatever they believe in, or maybe they don't have any beliefs or they haven't taken the time to even ask themselves those questions. They operate in the lower chakras. They operate probably in the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, maybe the heart. If they seem like a very happy, loving person, their heart's probably open and balanced. The higher chakras are more so your intuitive, higher mind, subtle abilities. So the way that I like to describe the chakras are like the lower chakras are connected to, of course, everything's connected to your divinity. Don't get me wrong. There's no separation here. But the way that I think of it as is like the lower chakras are more so like your human experience, and your higher chakras are more so your spiritual experience. And in order to awaken or balance out those higher chakras, you have to move from the lower chakras up to your heart. You have to move through the heart in order to get to the higher chakras. Move through the heart. So a lot of people ask me like, what's my first thing? How do I start with this? Like basic one-word answer, whatever. Start practicing more love. Start practicing more self-love. Start getting that heart chakra to be more expanded, to be more balanced, to be more active, right? So the more you think that, oh, I just have to like practice my intuition, but you need to know who you are. You need to know yourself. You need to practice self-love and love in general for other people. Have something to say, or you want to lash out, or you want to put someone in their place. It's like practice that person is also of God. They're no different than you. They're also God's daughter, God's son, right? So instead of judging, when you judge someone else, right? And I think judgment to a certain degree is just a human thing that we do. But when you judge somebody, it's almost like you're judging God as well, because you know that they came from God. They're a piece of God as well, just like you are. So if you're judging them, that means that that actually says a lot more about you and the work that you have to do on yourself, or what work is presenting itself to you based on like why you're even judging that person, right? So what I would tell someone who wants to start practicing with their intuition and they're on the beginning of their healing journey and all these things is like, your intuition will gradually expand, and we can work on these things together as you expand your consciousness, as you learn to hold more space and more love for everybody, right? Like in the beginning of my healing journey, I could not hold space for anybody that had a differing belief system than me, because I was so triggered. I was so new to my belief system that I wanted to prove it right. I wanted everyone to know this is right, that you're wrong, whatever, but I still had more work to do. That was a huge step for me to actually solidify in a belief system. But I had more work to do when it came to other people. It's like, okay, now that I know what I believe, everyone else is still allowed to believe whatever they want. And that has nothing to do with me. That's none of my business. I know what I'm here to do. I know the people I'm here to serve. So it's really none of my business to talk on this or shame or judge anybody else, because they're also on the same journey I am of connecting to a belief system that they feel is right for them, right? So in the beginning of my healing journey, like I said, I was very triggered when people would comment on my stuff and send me hate comments. I was very triggered when, I would have to go to church because there was a funeral, and I'm like, well, I shouldn't be here and I'm not a churchgoer anymore or whatever. But it's like, another level of that now is like, I can talk to anybody and validate what I believe to be true. It doesn't do anything. It's just their opinion. It's just out circling around in space, and it just exists out there. It doesn't mean anything about me. It only means something about me if I attach a meaning to it and I think that that's true, right? So it's funny because you actually, in order to expand your higher chakras, you have to expand the heart. You have to go through the heart. Your intuition is going to be quiet in the beginning. It's going to be neutral. It's going to be quiet. Your ego, your human mind is going to be loud, and it's going to have emotion attached to it. So I'll share a story with me. The first time that I listened to my intuition, this was right when I started my healing journey, right in the beginning. And I wasn't even concerned about intuition because I knew I was beginning healing. And so intuition really wasn't something that I desired at that time. I really just wanted to feel better. I wanted to feel less stress. I wanted to feel more confident. I wanted to feel more power over my life and feel like, more empowered in what I was doing and the decisions I was making in general. So intuition wasn't really on my mind, but my intuition spoke to me in a very critical point in my life that honestly I'm so grateful for, because if I didn't listen to that feeling, I would have been living a life right now that I don't like. I wouldn't be this version of me. I wouldn't have healed. So what happened was I graduated in 2020 from my undergraduate degree, and that's obviously, we know what happened that year. So I graduated from college. It was supposed to be the best time ever, but the world was flipped upside down and I had no idea what to do next. I had a plan before everything happened of going to nursing school. I just knew that's where I was going, into medicine. And throughout that process, I didn't know that natural medicine or holistic modalities existed. I just didn't know that much about it. And then obviously through college, I started connecting more with those things, more with the holistic route, as I was dealing with my own, problems and physical ailments and conditions and whatever. And anyway, I got to the point with the pandemic happening where I honestly thought to myself, like, okay, every single step of my life that I've done so far, I was 22, every single piece of my life, I knew the next step. I've always known my next step. And this is the first time that I was questioning that next step and I had no plan B. And I was terrified. And so my intuition basically, I got accepted to nursing school. I was supposed to go, and I got papers from the school basically saying, like, sign here, sign your life away for nursing school, right? And I knew that I would be a good nurse. It wasn't about like, do I want to do this? It was more so like me envisioning myself in a hospital, me envisioning myself in scrubs, like inside, working long shifts, being around, really sick people. I have compassion for those people, of course, but like, and I love nurses. Okay. This is nothing against nursing, but it was almost like my intuition was like, this isn't right for you. Like, this is not going to make you happy. Would this suffice? Would you be stable? Would you make enough money? Yeah. But like, would you be happy? No. And that's the first thing that my intuition ever really said to me. And I remember sitting there and being like, okay, well, I really, my intuition is telling me not to go through with this, but I had no backup plan. So basically, my ego was really loud. My ego was like saying all those things, like, you have no plan. What are you going to do? How are you going to make money? Like, how you don't even have a job right now. It's a pandemic. Like, if you go to school again, you're going to have to move, and you're in a relationship, and like all this stuff. My ego was screaming. But my intuition, underneath all of that loudness and emotion from my ego and fear, was my intuition, my soul, my spirit being like, just don't do it. Just don't. Right? And there's no evidence. There's nothing, nothing at this point in my life was like, oh, it's fine. Like, I was terrified. I moved back in with my parents. I had no job. I, didn't want to get a full-time job, but I just always knew I was going to be a student again. And I loved learning. So I'm like, what the heck in Bob do I do now? So anyway, I listened to that feeling, and I had no evidence. I had no proof. Like, everyone, thankfully, my parents are also very, spiritual, and they understand the value of being fulfilled in the work that you do. And so they totally understood, and they were like, girl, don't, they were supportive of my decision. But when it came to like what to do next, I just had no freaking idea. And so I made this, I didn't enroll. I called the school back up and I'm like, sorry, I'm not coming. Like, feel free to fill my spot, whatever. And I literally just sat there. Half of me felt fear and sad and confused and like a failure. And then other part of me felt so relieved and excited and hopeful and optimistic. And I feel like that's what it feels like when you first start to listen to your intuition. You have your ego that's filled with emotion and, criticizing you and saying all these things. And those things are valid, right? Like my ego, when it was telling me all those concerns are valid, right? But my soul underneath that was just so calm and was like, just don't, and you'll thank me later almost. And obviously I didn't know at that time that I would. So I'm so grateful for my past self and that I listened to that feeling. And because obviously, literally, I'll tell you the rest of the story because the rest of the story is the best. The last bit of the story is that I think 3 days later, maybe a week later, I ended up finding the school that I go to now. My intuition was like, yes. Like, once I found this school, you guys, about a week later, I was so relieved because my intuition was like a snap again. Like, my intuition again spoke up, but it felt differently this time. My intuition was like, yes. Like, my ego was like, wait, like, is this right? And what if you make a wrong decision again and blah, blah, blah stuff. And then underneath all of that, my intuition was like, hell yes. Hell yes. So I listened to it and I'm so glad. Like, I love the classes I'm taking, and eventually I'll have my doctorate and PhD. So right now I'm practicing with a master's. And I'm not a medical professional of any kind. I'm not a licensed medical professional. I'm board certified. But yeah, that's a little bit about me. And I have eventually, my goal is to graduate this year with my doctorate and PhD in natural medicine. So that's how I basically totally switched paths within a week by just listening to my intuition. And my intuition, when it spoke up the second time, was just like an immediate yes. And it was just like a quiet, like neutral, like, yep, hell yeah. So yeah, that's what happened. And I enrolled and I just figured everything else out from there. But it was so fulfilling because even when I was starting the classes and stuff, I just felt like so aligned with it. I was so excited and I was like, I'm so glad that like it's scary to switch paths like that, right? It is in that in between when you're not quite sure what the other path is. But I'm just so glad that happened and that I was redirected in that way and that I trusted myself even back then when my intuition was not strong at all. So that's a little bit about me, but I want to give you guys this, that your intuition can save you not only from like dangerous places or toxic relationships, but like your intuition can tell you the truth about what's going on around you, right? So like someone might not be acting sketchy or saying sketchy things, but your intuition could just be like kind of pinging you about that person, just to be like, be aware of that person, or don't really, spend too much time with them, or whatever it is. It can be used for anything, right? Because energy doesn't lie. You can use your intuition to fact check certain things. You can use your intuition to fact check certain situations, decisions, which home to buy, whatever it is. It's like almost like God's speaking through you. God's speaking to you saying yes or no, right? So the last thing that I want to share with you guys real quick is how to actually do it, right? Like if you're listening and you're like, I want that feeling. I really want to strengthen my intuition. I really want to know what that feels like. I want to have that skill in my like life toolbox of skills, right? Because it's honestly priceless. Like if I didn't trust that feeling, and I don't even know where I'd be right now. Like I wonder if I would have healed, in an alternate universe. Like I wonder if I would have healed anyway, and maybe I would have dropped out. Like I honestly don't know, and I don't care because I'm just so grateful that I made that decision and I trusted it. So yeah, once you start to trust your intuition, you guys, you make decisions quickly. You're not sitting in periods of indecision for so long, and you actually are able to guide yourself. Like you don't need people to, weigh things over with. And, especially as women, like most of the time it's like our body knows before we can even form the thoughts about something. So, but again, like if you're a man watching this, like you have intuition, everyone has it. And we have it for a reason is my point in this whole episode. Like, why would God give us that if it's not important or it's not useful and it can't help you out? So there's so many amazing stories of people that, have strong intuition and are able to guide themselves throughout their life. And instead of like taking so many loopholes around, taking this one path and then they don't have a good intuition, so they just keep going down that path even though it's not fulfilling, and all these things. Or another common place that people are is they know that their intuition's speaking up to them, but they don't fully trust it, or they don't like what it's saying. So you're sitting in this confusion all the time with your intuition, and then you're constantly beating yourself up for not listening to it. So it can get kind of confusing in that in-between area. But once you truly have that skill strengthened and yourself, it's like it happens like super quickly. So the way that you can actually start practicing, and like, I have streamlined this practice of strengthening your intuition by creating a meditation. So the way that I do this is I give my clients a meditation, and in that meditation, we put your brain into a certain frequency, which allows you to connect to your intuition. It's called alpha. It's essentially where your brain is relaxed. You are not your awareness, your consciousness isn't super focused on outside yourself. It's actually starting to go more inward into yourself, right? So like when you're in a deep meditative state, your consciousness is actually on your internal world. It's kind of not really in your environment anymore. Like, when you're in meditation that you're in this room and that I'm in this chair, but your consciousness is actually focused inward on yourself. So that's what we do. That's how I do the meditation. I've cultivated the meditation and created it so that it does that. It helps you get into that frequency of alpha, where your inner world starts to become more real than your outer world. And then from there, we do an energetic protection to make sure that, we're protected in that state of consciousness. And then we get your yes, your no, and your neutral from your intuition. And the more you do the meditation, the more you really solidify in what your yes is, what your no is, and what your neutral is. And then from there, I coach my clients on following those feelings out in their lives to practice it. And it's almost like the trust comes when you see yourself following it, and then what happens as a result of that. So, you might have a situation where you normally go to Starbucks to get your coffee in the morning, but today, for some reason, Starbucks was closed on a random day. And so your intuition told you to go to this other random cafe. And when you got there, you realize that, you walk in and you see, your dad sitting there. And you're like, hey, Dad, what's up? This is so weird. There's like a synchronistic moment. And sometimes it's not as obvious as that. Maybe you're the synchronicity for someone else. Maybe God's sending you as the sign for someone else. So you could walk in and, just be nice and thank the person for making your coffee and compliment them on their shirt. And maybe they're having the worst freaking day and they're not in a good mood and they're not in a good mindset, and your compliment lifts them up. So it's not like every single time you follow your intuition, you immediately get a confirmation, you immediately get a sign or a synchronicity, but never forget that you could be someone else's sign. You could be someone else's synchronicity. God might be placing you in environments or leading your intuition to show you a certain way or go this way or be in this store at this time because you are an influential part of the puzzle, just like everybody else is, right? So a lot of times in the spiritual work, I think we can get so focused on ourselves without realizing and remembering that, always like reminding ourselves that we also play a role in other people's lives. We're also here to teach other people lessons. We're here to compliment others and give love to others as well, not just take love. So maybe that's why God's bringing you into that coffee shop that day. And then you leave feeling so great instead of sitting in your car in the drive-thru for 20 minutes in Starbucks and, whatever. So the more you practice these things, the more you start to realize and trust the feelings you feel, because you realize where they're leading you and the feelings and the experiences and the people that you meet, right? Like God might lead you in a certain way or tell your intuition something. And maybe it's just to turn left at the stop sign that you normally turn right at, but you turn left anyway. And then you get to work and you realize that, there was actually a huge accident on that road. Whether or not God was redirecting you just so that you didn't have to wait in traffic, or whether or not that could have been you in the accident, it doesn't matter. It's like you following the feelings and realizing after the fact, or sometimes never, that there's a reason for everything. Right. And so it's like your intuition is your internal compass. So if you ever want to work with me one-on-one, you can always DM me. I don't have like an actual application out right now, but if you're serious about working with me on one-on-one, I can only take a certain amount of clients to do that because it is one-on-one time. If you're thinking or you're watching my podcast or my content and you want to work with me one-on-one, that's awesome. Always reach out to me and ask. Just because I don't have the link there or anything, just don't be afraid to reach out and connect with me. We're going to be talking about more self-love next week, and I'm going to be sharing more about the 30-day self-love challenge next week. And I'm super excited about this 30-day self-love challenge. And thank you guys so much for listening today in the show, and I will see you again next week.